Maxwell Crawford stood frozen in the doorway of his penthouse nursery, his briefcase falling from his hand and hitting the marble floor with a deafening crash. What he saw made his heart stop and his blood run cold. His three toddler triplets, Emma, Ethan, and Ella, were sitting in a perfect circle on the floor with Iris Washington, the black maid he'd hired 6 months ago. But they weren't just playing. The children were speaking, full, complete sentences, in three different languages, switching between English, Spanish, and French with the ease of native speakers. His 2-year-old babies, who'd barely been able to say mama and dada a month ago, were now having actual conversations. But that wasn't the shocking part. The truly shocking part was what they were saying. "Miss Iris, when will Papa stop being so sad?" Emma asked in perfect French. "He cries at night when he thinks no one can hear," Ethan added in Spanish. "We want to help him be happy again, like before Mama went to heaven," Ella finished in English. Maxwell's hands started shaking. How did his children know he cried at night? How were they speaking like this? And why did Iris, the maid he'd barely spoken more than a few words to in 6 months, look completely unsurprised by any of it? Iris turned slowly, as if she'd known he was there all along. Her dark eyes met his, and in them, Maxwell saw something that terrified him more than anything else. She wasn't startled. She wasn't scrambling to explain. She looked at him with the calm certainty of someone who'd been waiting for this exact moment, like she'd planned for him to discover this. Like this was supposed to happen. "Mr. Crawford," Iris said quietly, her voice carrying a weight that made Maxwell's skin prickle with goosebumps. "I think it's time we had a conversation about your children, about what they really are, and about why your late wife hired me 3 weeks before she died." Maxwell felt the room spinning. His late wife Vanessa had hired Iris? But Vanessa had been killed in a car accident 8 months ago. The agency had sent Iris to him 6 months ago when he'd finally broken down and admitted he needed help with the triplets. The agency had sent her. He'd never spoken to Vanessa about hiring anyone. His wife had been dead for 2 months before Iris arrived. Unless she was lying. Unless everything he thought he knew was wrong. "What are you talking about?" Maxwell's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Vanessa never hired you. She was already gone when you came to work for us." Iris smiled sadly, and it was a smile that contained more secrets than Maxwell thought one person should ever have to carry. "That's what you were meant to believe, Mr. Crawford. But your wife knew she was going to die. She knew someone was going to kill her, and she knew that when it happened, your children would need protection. Special protection. From people you don't even know exist. From threats you can't imagine. From a danger that's been waiting for the right moment to strike." Maxwell wanted to call the police, wanted to grab his children and run, wanted to scream that this woman was insane. But he couldn't move, couldn't speak, because deep down, in a place he'd been refusing to look for 8 months, Maxwell knew something had been wrong about Vanessa's death. The police said it was an accident, a tragic collision with a drunk driver. But Vanessa had been the most careful driver he'd ever known. She'd been on her way home from somewhere she wouldn't tell him about. She'd been secretive in the weeks before she died, acting strange, distant, afraid. "Papa," Emma called out, breaking the spell. She ran to Maxwell with her little arms outstretched, and instinct took over. He scooped her up, holding her tight, breathing in the baby shampoo smell of her hair. Ethan and Ella followed, wrapping themselves around his legs, and Maxwell stood there in his $15,000 suit, holding his impossible children, while a stranger told him his dead wife had predicted her own murder. "I think," Maxwell said carefully, "you need to explain everything. Right now. Or I'm calling the police, and you're never coming near my children again." "Of course," Iris said calmly. "But first, Mr. Crawford, you should know that there are 3 men in a black car parked outside your building. They've been there for 45 minutes. They're waiting for me to leave so they can come up here. And when they do, they're going to try to take your children. Just like they tried to take your wife. Just like they've been planning to take them since the moment they were born." Maxwell's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with shaking hands and looked at the screen. It was a text from building security. "Mr. Crawford, 3 men are asking about Miss Washington's schedule. Said their family. Should I send them up?" The phone slipped from Maxwell's fingers. This couldn't be happening. This was insane. But the children speaking 3 languages was insane. Iris knowing about Vanessa was insane. Everything about the last 5 minutes was completely impossible, yet it was happening. "Who are you?" Maxwell asked, his voice breaking. "Who are you, really?" "Someone your wife trusted with the most important mission of her life," Iris replied, "keeping her babies alive." But to understand how Maxwell Crawford, one of the richest men in New York City, ended up standing in his nursery, learning that his entire life might be a lie, we need to go back. Back to the beginning. Back to when Maxwell thought he had everything figured out. Back to before his perfect world shattered into 1,000 pieces. 6 months earlier, Maxwell Crawford had been drowning. Not literally, but emotionally, financially, and practically he was going under fast. His wife Vanessa had been dead for 2 months. His tech company was in the middle of a hostile takeover attempt. His mother was in the hospital with a stroke, and his 18-month-old triplets were running him into the ground. Maxwell had help, of course. His mother-in-law Lorraine came by every day. His assistant handled his schedule. His housekeeper kept the penthouse clean. But caring for 3 toddlers by himself was destroying him. He couldn't sleep, couldn't think, could barely function. The babies cried all night. They threw food. They needed constant attention. And Maxwell, who'd built a billion-dollar company through intelligence and ruthless efficiency, discovered he was completely helpless when faced with 3 tiny humans who didn't care about his accomplishments. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning when Maxwell found himself sitting on his kitchen floor at 4 a.m., holding a screaming Ethan, while Emma and Ella wailed in their cribs, and Maxwell just started crying right along with them. He was failing at everything. His company was dying because he couldn't focus. His children needed things he didn't know how to give. His grief for Vanessa was eating him alive, and he was so tired. "I can't do this," Maxwell whispered to his son, who was red-faced and shrieking. "I can't do this alone. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." That's when he called the elite nanny agency his assistant had recommended months ago. The one that promised extraordinary caregivers for extraordinary families. The one that cost $5,000 a week plus room and board. Maxwell didn't care about the cost. He just needed help. The agency sent Iris Washington. She arrived on a Wednesday afternoon, carrying a single worn suitcase and wearing clothes that made Maxwell frown. The agency had promised elite caregivers. Iris looked like she'd bought her dress at a thrift store. She was probably in her 50s, with dark skin, gray-streaked hair pulled back in a simple bun, and hands that looked like they'd done hard work for decades. She didn't look like someone who commanded $5,000 a week. "Mr. Crawford," Iris said when she arrived, her voice soft and warm, "it's an honor to meet you, and to meet Emma, Ethan, and Ella." "You know their names," Maxwell said, surprised. "Of course. I've been preparing for this position for a long time." Iris smiled at the triplets, who were in their playpen watching her with unusual intensity. "Hello, little ones. I'm going to be taking care of you. I hope that's all right." Ella, who never went to strangers, held out her arms. Iris picked her up without hesitation, and Ella immediately settled against her shoulder with a contentment Maxwell hadn't seen in months. "She likes you," Maxwell said, feeling both relieved and oddly jealous. "Children have good instincts about people," Iris replied. "They know who's safe." Over the next few weeks, Maxwell watched in amazement as Iris transformed his household. The triplets, who'd been demons for every other caregiver, were angels for her. They slept through the night. They ate their vegetables. They stopped throwing tantrums. Iris never raised her voice, never seemed frustrated, just calmly, efficiently, lovingly cared for 3 toddlers with a skill that seemed almost supernatural. "How do you do it?" Maxwell asked one night after the children had gone to bed peacefully for the 7th night in a row. "A record. Love and patience," Iris said simply, "and understanding what they need, not just what they want." "The agency said you're the best," Maxwell said. "They said families fight over you, that you've worked for senators, celebrities, foreign royalty." Something flickered across Iris's face. "I've worked for people who needed me," she said carefully. "Important people with important children." "Why are my children important?" Maxwell asked, trying to make a joke. "They're just regular kids." Iris looked at him for a long moment, and Maxwell had the strangest feeling she was deciding whether to tell him something. But then she smiled and said, "All children are important, Mr. Crawford. Every single one deserves protection and love." Maxwell should have pressed, should have asked more questions, but he was just so grateful to be sleeping again, so relieved that someone competent was caring for his babies, so focused on saving his company and helping his mother recover, that he didn't think too deeply about the mysterious nanny who'd arrived at his lowest moment like an answer to prayers he hadn't known how to pray. He certainly didn't notice the way Iris checked the windows every morning, or how she'd changed the locks on the nursery door without asking permission, or how she never, ever let the children out of her sight, or how she seemed to always position herself between the triplets and any stranger who came near them. Maxwell was too busy drowning to notice that Iris wasn't just caring for his children. She was guarding them. Life settled into a routine. Maxwell went to work trying to save his company. Iris cared for the children with an almost obsessive devotion. His mother-in-law, Lorraine, visited every day, though Maxwell noticed she and Iris didn't seem to like each other much. There was tension there he didn't understand, cold politeness instead of warmth. But Maxwell was too overwhelmed to care about personality conflicts between his staff and his family. The first strange thing Maxwell noticed was about 2 months after Iris arrived. He came home early one afternoon and heard Iris talking to the triplets. Not baby talk, real conversation, in Spanish. "Muy bien, Emma, otra vez." Maxwell stood outside the nursery door, listening in confusion. The triplets were responding, making sounds that almost sounded like words. At 20 months old, they should have been saying maybe 10 words total. But Maxwell could have sworn he heard Emma repeat something back to Iris. When he opened the door, Iris was just reading a picture book. The triplets were playing quietly with blocks. Everything looked completely normal. "Was someone speaking Spanish?" Maxwell asked. "I was singing to the children," Iris said smoothly. "My mother used to sing Spanish lullabies. I hope that's all right." "Of course," Maxwell said, though he could have sworn she'd been having a conversation, not singing. The second strange thing happened a month later. Maxwell's mother-in-law, Lorraine, cornered him at a family dinner. "I don't trust that nanny," Lorraine said, her voice tight with anger. "There's something wrong with her, something off. You need to fire her and hire someone else." "Iris is amazing," Maxwell protested. "The children love her. I love her. She saved my life." "That's what worries me," Lorraine said. "No one is that perfect, Maxwell. No one. She never gets tired, never complains, never asks for time off. It's not natural. And the way she looks at me sometimes, like she knows something I don't, it makes my skin crawl." "You're being paranoid," Maxwell said. "You're just upset that the children respond better to Iris than to you." It was a cruel thing to say, and Maxwell regretted it immediately. But Lorraine's face hardened. "Fine," she said coldly. "Don't listen to me. But Maxwell, mark my words. That woman is hiding something. And when you find out what it is, you're going to regret not listening to me." Lorraine stopped visiting after that. She'd called to check on the children, but she wouldn't come to the penthouse anymore. Wouldn't be in the same room as Iris. Maxwell told himself his mother-in-law was just grieving Vanessa in her own way, that she was looking for someone to blame for her daughter's death, that her suspicions were baseless. He didn't let himself think about the fact that Vanessa had also become paranoid before she died, that his wife had started acting strange and secretive, that she'd been seeing someone or something that had frightened her, that the last thing Vanessa had said to him before she died was, "If anything happens to me, promise you'll protect the children, no matter what. Promise me, Maxwell." He'd promised, but he hadn't understood what she meant. Protect them from what? They were babies. What danger could they possibly be in? Maxwell threw himself into work. The hostile takeover was brutal. A mysterious corporation called Meridian Industries was buying up shares of Crawford Technologies at an alarming rate. They'd made a hostile bid to take control of the company. Maxwell was fighting back, but it was exhausting. Late nights, endless meetings, legal battles, financial maneuvering. He barely saw his children except for an hour in the mornings and an hour at bedtime. But every time he came home, no matter how late, Iris was there. Calm, competent, perfect. The children were always clean, happy, and peacefully sleeping. The apartment was always in order. It was like having a fairy godmother, Maxwell sometimes thought. Someone who'd appeared magically to save him when he needed it most. He should have asked himself why. Should have questioned why an elite nanny would take a position with a widower and 3 toddlers when she could have worked for royalty. Should have wondered why she never took days off, why she never talked about her own family, why she seemed to have no life outside of his apartment and his children. But Maxwell was drowning, and Iris was the life raft. He didn't question it. He just held on, until the day his mother had a second stroke, worse than the first. Maxwell got the call at work, rushed to the hospital, spent 3 days at his mother's bedside while she fought for her life. She survived, barely, but the doctors said she'd need months of rehabilitation, maybe longer. She might never fully recover. Maxwell was destroyed. He'd already lost Vanessa. Now his mother was slipping away. He felt like everything he loved was being systematically taken from him, like some cruel fate was punishing him for sins he didn't remember committing. He stumbled home on the 3rd night, exhausted and emotionally shattered. It was past midnight. The penthouse was dark except for a light in the nursery. Maxwell walked toward it, planning to check on his sleeping children, maybe sit with them for a while, and remember that not everything good in his life was gone. That's when he heard it. Voices, Iris and the children. But not baby babbling, real conversation. "Miss Iris, is Papa going to be okay?" Emma's voice clear as a bell, speaking English with perfect pronunciation. "He's very sad right now," Iris replied. "But he's strong. He'll survive this, just like he survived losing your mama." "Can we help him?" Ethan asked, in Spanish. Perfect Spanish. "Just by being here," Iris said. "Just by loving him. That's all any of us can do." Maxwell stood frozen in the hallway. His 2-year-old children were having a complex conversation about grief and emotional support, in 2 languages. This wasn't possible, wasn't real. He must be having a breakdown, hallucinating from stress and exhaustion. He turned to leave, to go to bed and pretend he hadn't heard anything. But as he turned, his briefcase hit the hallway table. The noise echoed through the quiet apartment. The nursery went silent. Maxwell knew he should walk away, should ignore what he'd heard, should go to bed and deal with this impossibility in the morning when he was rested and rational. But his feet carried him toward the nursery anyway, toward answers he wasn't sure he wanted. He pushed open the door. And that's when Maxwell Crawford's carefully constructed world began to crumble. That's when he discovered that the last 6 months of his life had been built on lies, secrets, and a truth so impossible he couldn't begin to process it. That's when he learned that the perfect nanny wasn't just a nanny, that his children weren't just children, that his wife's death wasn't just an accident, that everything he thought he knew was wrong. But he didn't learn all of that immediately. No, at first he just learned that he was right to be terrified. Because when Maxwell opened that door and confronted Iris, when his children displayed abilities that shouldn't exist, and Iris revealed she'd been sent by his dead wife to protect them from an unnamed threat, Maxwell realized something horrifying. He'd been living with a stranger for 6 months. A stranger who had complete access to his children. A stranger who knew things she shouldn't know. A stranger who just told him that men were coming to take his babies. And Maxwell had no idea if she was his greatest ally or his worst nightmare. His phone buzzed again. Another text from security. "Mr. Crawford, the men are insistent. They say it's urgent. Should I send them up?" Maxwell looked at his children, at Iris, at the phone, at the door, at all the exits and entrances and ways someone could get into his home, his sanctuary, his safe place. Except it wasn't safe. Maybe it never had been. Maybe safety was an illusion and danger had been lurking in his life for years, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Maybe Vanessa had known. Maybe that's why she'd been scared. Maybe that's why she'd hired Iris. Or maybe Iris was lying. Maybe she was the danger. Maybe she'd been planning this all along, getting close to his children, winning his trust, preparing for this moment when she'd reveal some insane story and he'd be too confused and frightened to think clearly. "Who are those men downstairs?" Maxwell demanded, his voice harder now. "And why do they want my children?" "Because your wife took something that didn't belong to her," Iris said. something incredibly valuable, something powerful people would kill to get back. And they think the secret of where she hid it died with her. But they're wrong. The secret is alive. It's in your children, in their DNA, in their blood, in their minds that develop faster than any human children should. Your wife didn't just give you three beautiful babies, Mr. Crawford. She gave you three living keys to something that could change the world. Maxwell's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the floor, still holding Emma, with Ethan and Ella pressed against him. This is insane. You're insane. I'm calling the police. If you call the police, those men will kill the officers who respond and take your children anyway, Iris said, her voice deadly calm. The only thing keeping Emma, Ethan, and Ella alive right now is me. Your wife knew that. That's why she hired me. That's why she paid me not in money but in a promise. Protect her children, and when they're old enough, they'll protect me in return. Protect you from what? Maxwell whispered. From the same people who killed your wife, Iris replied. The same people who are downstairs right now. The same people who've been hunting me for 30 years. The same people who will never, ever stop until they get what they want. Emma looked up at Maxwell with her big innocent eyes. Papa, don't be scared. Miss Iris keeps us safe. She promised Mama. And that's when Maxwell Crawford, billionaire tech genius, devoted father, grieving widower, had to make an impossible choice. Trust a stranger who just told him an insane story about his late wife, his impossible children, and men who wanted to kidnap them. Or trust his instincts, call security, and hope that this was all some terrible misunderstanding that could be sorted out by rational adults having a calm conversation. But looking into Iris's eyes, seeing the absolute certainty there, hearing his 2-year-old daughter speak with the vocabulary of a child 3 times her age, Maxwell knew there was no rational explanation. Knew that calm conversations weren't going to solve this. Knew that the world he thought he lived in was gone, replaced by something darker and stranger and infinitely more dangerous. His phone buzzed a 3rd time. Security again? Mr. Crawford, I'm sending them up. They have identification showing they're federal agents. I can't legally stop them. Federal agents, coming for his children, right now. What do I do? Maxwell asked Iris, hating how desperate he sounded. Hating that he was asking a stranger for help, but having no other choice. Iris moved with sudden, frightening speed. She grabbed a bag from behind the toy chest, pulled out what looked like 3 small devices, and attached one to each child. These will track them, she said. No matter where they go, I'll be able to find them. What? No! You're not putting tracking devices on my children. Maxwell tried to grab them, but Iris held up a hand. Mr. Crawford, in about 90 seconds, 3 men are going to knock on your door. They're going to show you federal credentials. They're going to tell you there's a threat to your children and they need to take them into protective custody. Everything they say will sound reasonable, logical, safe. And if you believe them, if you let them take Emma, Ethan, and Ella, you will never see your children again. They will disappear into a system you don't know exists. And by the time you figure out what happened, it will be too late. Then what am I supposed to do? Maxwell was shouting now, not caring if the whole building heard him. Let you take them? Trust you? I don't even know who you are. You know who I am, Iris said softly. Vanessa told you, in her own way. Remember the last thing she said to you, Mr. Crawford. Remember her last words, and then decide if I'm telling the truth. Maxwell's mind raced back to that terrible day 8 months ago. The hospital. Vanessa on the gurney, broken and bleeding, her hand gripping his so tight it hurt, her eyes wide with fear and urgency. Her voice barely a whisper. Promise me you'll protect the children, no matter what, no matter who tells you they're trying to help. Trust no one except the woman with the iris tattoo. Promise me, Maxwell. Promise. Maxwell had thought she was delirious, rambling. He'd promised just to comfort her. Then she died, and he'd forgotten about it in his grief. The woman with the iris tattoo. It had seemed like nonsense. But now, staring at Iris, Maxwell saw it, on her wrist. A small tattoo of an iris flower, the same flower his wife had been named after. Vanessa Iris Crawford. Show me your wrist, Maxwell whispered. Iris held up her arm. There it was, a beautiful purple iris, tattooed in intricate detail. The proof Vanessa had told him to look for. The sign that this woman could be trusted, or a horrible coincidence, or a trick, or something Iris had done after learning about Vanessa's last words from hospital staff or police reports, or any of a dozen other ways. There was a knock at the door. Hard, official, demanding. "Federal agents, Mr. Crawford, we need to speak with you immediately. It's regarding the safety of your children." Iris looked at Maxwell. "Choose," she said simply. "Trust me or trust them. But choose now, because in 10 seconds, one way or another, your life will never be the same." Maxwell looked at his children, at Emma, Ethan, and Ella, who were watching him with those two intelligent eyes, who'd been speaking languages they shouldn't know, who'd been asking questions about his grief that toddlers shouldn't understand, who'd been developing at a rate that wasn't natural or normal or explainable by any science Maxwell understood. He thought about Vanessa, about how she'd been acting strange before she died, about the secrets she'd been keeping, about her paranoia and fear, about her last desperate words. He thought about Iris, about how she'd appeared at exactly the right moment, about how she'd transformed his household, about how she'd never asked for a day off or time to herself, about how she'd devoted herself to his children with an intensity that went beyond professional duty. He thought about the men at the door, about how convenient it was that they'd shown up right now, about how they claimed to be federal agents, but Iris said they were killers, about how he had no way to verify anything in the next few seconds. The knocking got louder. "Mr. Crawford, open this door now or we're coming in." Maxwell made his choice. He didn't know if it was the right one, didn't know if he was saving his children or dooming them, didn't know if Iris was an angel or a devil, but Vanessa had trusted her, had used her dying breaths to tell Maxwell to trust the woman with the iris tattoo. And Maxwell had loved his wife, had trusted her judgment, had to believe that even in her final moments, even delirious and dying, Vanessa had been trying to protect their babies. "What do you need me to do?" Maxwell asked Iris. Iris smiled, and for the first time since she'd arrived 6 months ago, Maxwell saw genuine emotion on her face. Relief, gratitude, and something that looked almost like hope. "Grab your car keys," Iris said, "and pray we make it to the service elevator before they break down your door." The door shook with impact. The men weren't knocking anymore. They were breaking in. Maxwell grabbed his keys with shaking hands. Iris scooped up Ethan and Ella. Maxwell held Emma. They ran from the nursery toward the back of the penthouse, toward the service entrance that Maxwell had barely used since moving in. Behind them, Maxwell heard his front door splinter and crash open, heard heavy footsteps and shouted commands, heard professional, military-grade efficiency as the men began searching his home, searching for his children, searching for the 3 impossible toddlers who spoke multiple languages and asked questions about grief and apparently held some secret in their DNA that powerful people would kill for. Maxwell and Iris reached the service elevator. Iris hit the button with her elbow, her arms full of Maxwell's children. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. "Mr. Crawford," a voice shouted from the penthouse. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. We're here to help. Your children are in danger." Maxwell looked back, saw 3 large men in dark suits moving toward them with frightening speed, saw weapons, saw determination, saw men who would not stop until they got what they came for. He dove into the elevator with Iris and his children, hit the garage button. The doors started to close. One of the men lunged forward, his hand reaching for the elevator. His fingers caught the door, started to force it back open. Iris didn't hesitate. She kicked out with brutal efficiency, her foot connecting with the man's face. He fell back with a cry of pain. The doors closed. The elevator started to descend. "They'll be waiting in the garage," Maxwell gasped, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might explode. "They'll have the exits covered. We're trapped." "No," Iris said calmly. "We're not." She pulled out a phone Maxwell had never seen before, made a call, spoke 3 words: "Extraction, Alpha Protocol." "What does that mean?" Maxwell demanded. "It means," Iris said, "that the next few minutes are going to be very, very dangerous. It means you're going to see things you don't understand. It means your children are going to do things that will terrify you. And it means that after tonight, nothing will ever be the same. You're about to learn the truth, Mr. Crawford, about your wife, about your children, about me, about a world that exists in the shadows of the one you think you know. Are you ready for that? No, Maxwell said honestly, but I don't think I have a choice. The elevator hit the garage level. The doors opened, and Maxwell Crawford stepped into a nightmare that had been waiting for him since the day his children were born. A nightmare his wife had tried to protect him from. A nightmare that was about to swallow his entire life whole. But at least he wasn't alone. He had Iris. He had his impossible children. He had Vanessa's final message. And he had one advantage the men hunting him didn't expect. Maxwell Crawford hadn't built $1 billion company by giving up when things got hard. He'd done it by fighting, by outsmarting his enemies, by refusing to lose. These men wanted his children. They were going to have to go through him first. And Maxwell was about to discover that he was capable of things he'd never imagined, would do things he'd sworn he'd never do, would become someone he'd never thought he could be, all to protect the 3 tiny humans who were the only pieces of Vanessa he had left. The 3 children who weren't just children, who were something more, something special, something worth killing for, something worth dying for. The garage was empty, too empty. Maxwell's instincts, honed by years of corporate warfare, screamed danger. "Where are they?" he whispered. "Everywhere," Iris replied, "but not where we're going." She led them not toward Maxwell's car, but toward a maintenance tunnel he'd never noticed before. A door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Iris pushed it open without hesitation. "How did you—" Maxwell started to ask. "Your wife and I prepared for this," Iris interrupted. "For months before she died. We knew they'd come eventually. We just didn't know when. Now move. We have maybe 60 seconds before they realize we're not coming to the garage level." They plunged into darkness, and as the door closed behind them, as Maxwell heard shouting and footsteps echoing through the garage above, as his children pressed against him in the dark, Maxwell realized with perfect clarity that his old life was over. The life where he was just a businessman. Just a father. Just a widow trying to survive. That person was gone, and in his place was someone new, someone who would have to be harder, smarter, more dangerous, someone who would do whatever it took to protect his family, even if it meant becoming a monster. The question was, would he recognize himself when this was all over? And the even bigger question, would he survive long enough to find out? The maintenance tunnel was darker than anything Maxwell had ever experienced. Not just the absence of light, but a thick, oppressive blackness that seemed to swallow sound and hope along with visibility. He clutched Emma tighter, feeling her small heartbeat against his chest, and followed the sound of Iris's footsteps ahead of him. Behind them, muffled but growing louder, came the sounds of pursuit, shouts, heavy boots, the metallic clang of the maintenance door being forced open. "They're coming," Maxwell whispered urgently. "Iris, they're right behind us." "I know," Iris replied, her voice eerily calm in the darkness. "Keep moving. 30 more feet and turn left. There's a ladder. We're going down." "Down where? This building only has 2 basement levels. We're already below the garage." "This building has secrets its owner doesn't know about," Iris said. "Your wife made sure of that." They reached the ladder. Maxwell could barely see it, but his hands found the cold metal rungs. Emma whimpered against his shoulder. "Shh, baby," Maxwell soothed. "It's okay. We're okay." But they weren't okay. Nothing was okay. Maxwell was climbing down a ladder in the dark, fleeing from armed men, following a nanny who just revealed his late wife had been involved in some kind of conspiracy. This was insane. This was impossible. This was— His foot hit solid ground. They'd reached the bottom, wherever bottom was. Iris flicked on a small flashlight, and Maxwell gasped. They were standing in a tunnel. Not a maintenance tunnel, but something older. Stone walls, arched ceiling. It looked like it had been built 100 years ago, maybe more. Water dripped somewhere in the distance. The air smelled of earth and age. "What is this place?" Maxwell breathed. "New York is full of forgotten tunnels," Iris said, already moving forward. "Prohibition smuggling routes. Old subway passages that never got used. Basement connections between buildings from when the city was younger. Your wife found this one and made sure it stayed secret, made sure it stayed accessible, made sure that if this day ever came, we'd have a way out. How long did she know? Maxwell asked, following Iris deeper into the tunnel. Behind them, he heard the pursuers reach the ladder, heard someone curse as they started to climb down. How long was Vanessa planning for this? Since before the children were born, Iris said. Since before you even knew she was pregnant. Maxwell stopped walking. What? Iris turned to face him, the flashlight casting strange shadows on her face. Mr. Crawford, we don't have time for the whole story right now, but you need to understand something. Your wife didn't accidentally get pregnant with triplets. She chose it. She planned it. And she spent every day of her pregnancy preparing for what came after, because she knew there were people who would want to take them, want to study them, want to use them for purposes you can't begin to imagine. You're telling me Vanessa planned to have triplets? Maxwell's voice rose, echoing off the tunnel walls. That's not how biology works. You can't just decide to have 3 babies at once. You can if you have access to the right technology, Iris said quietly. Technology that shouldn't exist, that most people don't know exists. But your wife knew, because she helped create it. The world tilted again. Maxwell leaned against the cold stone wall, feeling like his brain was going to short-circuit from too much impossible information. Vanessa was a teacher. She taught literature at Columbia. She had nothing to do with technology or science or any of this. That's what she wanted you to believe, Iris said. That's what she wanted everyone to believe. But before she was Vanessa Crawford, before she was a literature professor, before you met her at that gallery opening 7 years ago, your wife was Dr. Vanessa Chen, and she was one of the most brilliant genetic scientists in the world. Chen, not Iris, not her maiden name of Iris like she'd told him. Chen. You're lying, Maxwell said, but his voice lacked conviction, because pieces were clicking together in his mind, the way Vanessa had always been fascinated by genetics, the science journals she'd read late at night, the phone calls she'd taken in another room, the consulting work she'd done that she'd never fully explained. Papa, can we keep going? Ethan asked in Spanish. The bad men are getting closer. I can hear them. Maxwell looked at his son, his 2-year-old son who was speaking Spanish and demonstrating awareness of danger that shouldn't be possible for a toddler. What did she do to them? Maxwell asked Iris, his voice breaking. What did my wife do to our children? She gave them a gift, Iris said, and a burden. She enhanced their cognitive development, made them smarter, faster learners, more intuitive. She wanted to create children who could change the world, who could solve problems that normal humans couldn't, who could be the next step in human evolution. She experimented on our babies? Maxwell felt sick, felt betrayed, felt like the woman he'd loved and lost had been a complete stranger. She saved them, Iris corrected, because the organization she used to work for, the one that funded her research, they wanted to use the technology for something else, something terrible. They wanted to create super soldiers, enhanced operatives, people with increased intelligence and decreased empathy. Your wife realized what they were planning and she ran, but not before taking the most important thing, the genetic modification technique she'd perfected. She hid it in the only place they'd never think to look, in her own children. In their DNA. The sound of footsteps was getting louder. The men were in the tunnel now. Maxwell could see flashlight beams bouncing off the walls behind them. Move, Iris commanded. We'll continue this conversation when we're safe. If we're safe. They ran. Maxwell's expensive dress shoes splashed through puddles of water that had collected on the tunnel floor. His suit jacket caught on rough stone. Emma clung to his neck so tightly he could barely breathe. But he kept running because what choice did he have? The tunnel branched. Iris took them left without hesitation. Then right, then down a passage so narrow Maxwell had to turn sideways to squeeze through. The sounds of pursuit faded slightly. Maybe they'd taken a wrong turn. Maybe they'd lost them. How much further? Maxwell gasped. Almost there, Iris replied. Almost where? Safe house, 3 blocks from here. We come up in the basement of a building your wife purchased under a shell corporation. Everything we need is there. Supplies, documents, escape routes. She thought of everything, Mr. Crawford. She loved you and the children so much that she spent 2 years preparing for a day she prayed would never come. They reached another ladder. This one led up. Iris climbed first, balancing Ella on her back with practiced ease. Ethan went next, climbing with surprising coordination for a 2-year-old. Maxwell followed last with Emma, looking back over his shoulder constantly, expecting to see the men burst around the corner at any moment. But they didn't. The tunnel stayed empty. They'd lost them. For now. Iris pushed open a hatch at the top of the ladder, and they emerged into a basement that looked like it had been abandoned for decades, except for one corner, which was clearly maintained, clean, organized, stocked with supplies. "Welcome to Safe House Alpha," Iris said, lowering Ella to the ground. "Your wife called it that. Alpha for the beginning, the first place we'd run if things went wrong." Maxwell set Emma down and immediately went to the basement stairs, checking to make sure the door at the top was locked and secure. It was. Multiple locks. Heavy duty. Someone had reinforced this entire space. "We can't stay here," Maxwell said, turning back to Iris. "If Vanessa set this up, and those men knew about her, they'll know about this place too. We're sitting ducks." "They don't know about it," Iris said with certainty. "Your wife died before she could tell them where she'd hidden the information they wanted. That's why they killed her. Tortured first, killed second. She never broke. Never told them anything. They've spent the last 8 months trying to find what she hid, and they've been looking in all the wrong places." Maxwell felt his knees buckle. He sat down hard on the concrete floor. "They tortured her? The accident wasn't an accident? They killed my wife?" "Yes," Iris said simply. There was no sugarcoating it, no gentle way to deliver that truth. "I'm sorry. I know this is a lot, but you needed to know." "How do you know all this?" Maxwell demanded. "Who are you really? And don't tell me you're just a nanny, just a caregiver. Nobody risks their life for someone else's children out of professional obligation." Iris was quiet for a long moment. The triplets had settled on a blanket in the corner, playing quietly with toys that had been stored here, waiting here, for years, for this exact scenario. "My real name is Dr. Iris Washington," Iris said finally. "I worked with your wife at the Meridian Institute. We were partners, best friends. We were trying to change the world together, create something beautiful, something that could help humanity. But the people funding our research had other plans. When your wife ran, they killed my family to punish me for not stopping her. My husband, my daughter. Murdered because I chose friendship over loyalty to an organization I just learned was evil." Maxwell looked at Iris with new eyes, saw the grief she carried, the loss that mirrored his own. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be," Iris said, her voice hard now. "Be angry. Be determined. Be ready to fight. Because those men who came to your penthouse tonight, they work for Meridian. They've been trying to find your wife's research for 8 months. And now that they've made their move, now that they have revealed themselves, they won't stop until they have what they want. Your children. The living proof that the genetic enhancement works. The keys to unlocking the technique your wife died to protect." "Can we remove it?" Maxwell asked desperately. "Whatever she did to their DNA, can we undo it? Give Meridian what they want so they'll leave us alone?" "No," Iris said, "because it's not in their DNA anymore. It's in their brains. Your wife didn't just enhance their genetics. She encoded information directly into their neural pathways. As they grow, as their brains develop, they'll unconsciously remember things your wife wanted them to know. Information about the enhancement process, codes, formulas, everything Meridian needs to replicate what she did. Your children are living data storage, Mr. Crawford, and by the time they're 5 years old, they'll be able to consciously access that information. They'll know everything. They'll understand what they are." Maxwell looked at Emma, Ethan, and Ella playing peacefully in the corner. His babies. His beautiful, innocent babies. Except they weren't innocent anymore. They were weapons. Living targets. Children who would never have normal lives because their mother had used them as a flash drive for information that people would kill to possess. "I hate her," Maxwell whispered. "Right now in this moment, I hate my wife for doing this to them, for doing this to us, for dying and leaving me to deal with this impossible situation. That's fair, Iris said, but hate her later. Right now we need to plan, because Meridian will have teams searching every property connected to you, every building you own, every place you've ever been. They'll freeze your accounts, monitor your phone, track your car. Within hours, you'll be completely cut off from your normal life, your company, your resources, everything. Then what do we do? Maxwell asked. Where do we go? How do we protect the children? We run, Iris said. We stay ahead of them until the children are old enough to defend themselves, until they can access the information in their minds and use it. Use it to expose Meridian, to destroy the people who killed your wife and my family, to make sure the sacrifice wasn't for nothing. That could take years, Maxwell said. 3 years minimum. We're supposed to just run and hide for 3 years? Yes, Iris said, unless you have a better idea. Maxwell thought hard. He was a businessman, a strategist. He'd built an empire by outthinking his competitors. There had to be another way, something smarter than just running. What if we go public? Maxwell said slowly. What if we expose everything? Tell the world what Meridian did? They can't come after us if everyone knows who they are. They'll kill you before you finish your press conference, Iris said, and then they'll claim you were mentally unstable, grieving your wife, making up conspiracy theories. And while the public debates whether you were crazy or truthful, Meridian will take your children into protective custody and disappear them. You can't fight them that way, Mr. Crawford. They're too powerful, too connected. Then how do we fight them? We don't, Iris said. Not yet. Not until we're ready. Not until the children are ready. Your wife spent 2 years planning our survival. Trust her plan. Trust me. Maxwell wanted to argue, wanted to take control, wanted to fix this like he fixed everything else in his life through intelligence and money and sheer determination. But looking at Iris, seeing the certainty in her eyes, remembering that Vanessa had trusted this woman with her dying breath, Maxwell realized he had to let go. Had to accept that he wasn't the expert here. Had to follow instead of lead. Okay, Maxwell said. What's the plan? Iris smiled. First, we need to fake your death. What? If Meridian thinks you're alive, they'll use you as leverage. They'll threaten to hurt you unless the children cooperate. But if you're dead, the children become the only targets. And children are easier to protect than adults. More portable. More adaptable. You want me to abandon my children? Maxwell stood up, anger replacing fear. Absolutely not. I won't do it. I'll die before I leave them. You'll die if you stay with them, Iris corrected. But I'm not asking you to leave them forever. Just for a while, a few months, maybe a year, until we establish a new identity for you, until we make you someone Meridian won't recognize. Then you can come back, be with your children, but do it as someone they can't trace. This is insane, Maxwell said. But even as he protested, his strategic mind was seeing the logic, seeing how it could work. How would we even fake my death? Your mother's in the hospital, Iris said quietly. Dying. You're her next of kin. When she passes, which the doctors say could happen any day now, you'll need to identify the body. Go to the morgue, except you won't make it there. Your car will have an accident on the way. It will burn. The body inside will be unrecognizable. DNA tests will be inconclusive because of the fire damage. And while Meridian thinks you're dead, we'll be establishing your new identity. You want to use my mother's death as cover for faking mine? Maxwell felt sick. That's monstrous. That's survival, Iris said without apology. Your wife made me promise I'd do whatever it took to keep the children safe. Whatever it took. This is what it takes. Maxwell walked to the corner where his children played, knelt down beside them. They looked up at him with those too intelligent eyes. Papa, are you going away? Emma asked. In English this time. How did you know that? Maxwell whispered. We always know, Ethan said. Miss Iris taught us. She taught us lots of things. Things we're not supposed to tell you yet. But I think it's okay now. I think you're ready. Ready for what? Maxwell asked. Ella put her small hand on Maxwell's face. Ready to know the truth, that Mama's still alive. The world stopped. Maxwell's heart stopped. Everything stopped. What did you say? His voice was barely audible. Mama's not dead, Emma said matter-of-factly. She's hiding, waiting. Miss Iris talks to her sometimes. We've seen her. Maxwell turned slowly to look at Iris. She was standing very still, her face unreadable. Is this true? He asked, his voice deadly quiet. Is my wife alive? Iris took a long breath. Let it out. The children weren't supposed to tell you that. Not yet. Not until we were sure it was safe. Is she alive? Maxwell roared, surging to his feet. Yes, Iris said simply. Vanessa is alive. The car accident was staged. We killed someone else. Made it look like her. Fooled the medical examiners. She's been in hiding for 8 months. Watching. Protecting the children from a distance. Waiting for Meridian to make their move so we'd know who the leak was. Who in your life was feeding them information? Maxwell couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. His wife was alive. The woman he'd grieved for. The woman he'd cried over. The woman whose grave he'd visited every week. Alive. You let me think she was dead, Maxwell said, his voice shaking with rage. You watched me grieve. Watched me fall apart. Watched me struggle to raise our children alone. And the whole time she was alive? The whole time you both knew and you said nothing. It was the only way to keep you safe, Iris said. If you knew she was alive, you would have tried to find her, would have left clues. Meridian would have noticed. They would have realized the death was fake. They would have kept searching. This way, they believed she was dead, believed the information died with her. It gave us time. Time for what? Maxwell demanded. Time to lie to me? Time to manipulate me? Time to turn my entire life into a game where I'm the only one who doesn't know the rules? Time to save your children, Iris shot back. Time to protect them. Time to make sure that when Meridian finally came, we'd be ready. Your wife loves you, Mr. Crawford. She hated lying to you, hated watching you suffer from a distance. But she loved your children more, and she knew this was the only way to keep them alive. Maxwell walked to the far corner of the basement, put his hands on the cold stone wall, tried to process the impossible information. Vanessa was alive. His children had known. Iris had known. Everyone except him had known. He'd been the fool, the grieving widower, the mark. Where is she? Maxwell asked, his voice cold. Where is my wife? I can't tell you that, Iris said. Not yet. It's not safe. Not safe, Maxwell whirled around. You just told me you're going to fake my death. You just told me I have to leave my children for months or maybe a year. Nothing about this situation is safe. Where is Vanessa? Nearby, Iris admitted. Closer than you think. But Mr. Crawford, if you go to her now, if you demand to see her, you'll lead Meridian straight to her. They're watching you, following you. The only reason we got away tonight is because I've been preparing for this for months. If you deviate from the plan now, if you let emotion override strategy, you'll get everyone killed. Maxwell wanted to scream, wanted to hit something, wanted to tear down these walls and find his wife and demand answers for why she'd put him through 8 months of hell. But he couldn't, because Iris was right. Emotion was dangerous now. Sentiment was a liability. If he wanted to protect his family, he had to think like a strategist, not a husband. Fine, Maxwell said through gritted teeth. I'll play along with your plan. I'll fake my death. I'll leave my children. I'll do whatever you say. But I want your promise, Iris. I want your word that when this is over, when we're safe, I get to see her. I get answers. I get the truth about everything. You have my word, Iris said. Swear it, Maxwell demanded. Swear on your husband's grave. Swear on your daughter's memory. Swear on everything you've lost that you'll reunite me with my wife. Iris's face hardened. I swear on my husband's grave and my daughter's memory that when it's safe, you'll see Vanessa again. You'll have your answers. You'll have your family back. That's my promise to you, Mr. Crawford. But you have to trust me. You have to follow the plan. Can you do that? Maxwell looked at his children, at Emma, Ethan, and Ella, who were watching this whole exchange with understanding that no 2-year-old should possess. They'd known their mother was alive. They'd kept the secret because they understood it was necessary. If they could be that strong, that disciplined, couldn't he? Yes, Maxwell said finally. I can do that. Good, Iris said, because tomorrow morning you're going to get a call from the hospital. Your mother will have passed during the night. You'll go to identify the body, you'll take your car, and on the way to the morgue, that car will have a very unfortunate accident. What about my company? Maxwell asked. Crawford Technologies. What happens to it? It's already being handled, Iris said. Your wife has been preparing for this. She set up trusts, established succession plans. Your company will survive. It will be there when you come back, when this is over. If we survive, Maxwell corrected. When we survive, Iris insisted. Your wife didn't go through all this just to fail. Neither will I. Neither will you. We're going to win, Mr. Crawford. We're going to beat Meridian. We're going to protect the children. We're going to expose what they did. And we're going to make sure that no one else has to lose their family the way we lost ours. It was a pretty speech, an inspiring vision. But Maxwell had been in business long enough to know that plans, no matter how carefully constructed, often fell apart when they met reality. What could go wrong? Maxwell asked. What's the worst-case scenario? Iris hesitated. The worst case is that Meridian figures out the children are living data storage before they're old enough to consciously access it. If that happens, they'll extract the information surgically, from their brains. The procedure would be fatal. They'd kill them. Maxwell's voice was hollow. They'd dissect them, Iris corrected. Study them. Take them apart piece by piece to understand how your wife embedded the information. Your children would die slowly, painfully, in a laboratory somewhere. That's the worst case. That's what we're trying to prevent. Maxwell felt bile rising in his throat. And the best case? The best case is that the children reach age 5 safely. They access the information. We use it to destroy Meridian from the inside. We expose everything. We bring down the people responsible. And your family gets to live the rest of their lives in peace, free from fear, free from hiding. That's what we're fighting for. 3 years, Maxwell said. 3 years of running and hiding. Can we really do this for 3 years? We don't have a choice, Iris said. Now come on. We need to get the children settled. Tomorrow is going to be a very long day. The day Maxwell Crawford dies. The day we find out if your wife's plan is brilliant enough to save us all. They spent the night in the safe house. Maxwell barely slept. His mind kept racing through everything he'd learned. Vanessa was alive. His children were enhanced. Meridian wanted to dissect his babies. Everything he'd thought he knew was a lie. And tomorrow he had to fake his own death. It was too much. Too impossible. Too insane. But when morning came, when his phone rang with the call from the hospital saying his mother had passed peacefully in her sleep, Maxwell found himself going through the motions exactly as Iris had instructed. He kissed his children goodbye. He told them he loved them. He promised he'd see them again soon. And then he got in his car and drove toward the morgue. He made it 6 blocks before the other car hit him. It came out of nowhere. A black SUV running a red light at 60 miles per hour. It T-boned Maxwell's sedan perfectly, right on the driver's side. The impact was devastating. Maxwell's car spun, flipped, and burst into flames. Maxwell, who'd been thrown clear of the vehicle seconds before impact because Iris had disabled his seatbelt and rigged the door to open on impact, lay on the pavement watching his car burn, watching smoke pour into the sky, watching people run toward the wreckage with their phones out, calling 911, filming, trying to help. But they wouldn't find a body, or rather, they'd find a body, but it wouldn't be Maxwell's. It would be a homeless man Iris had paid off, drugged, and placed in Maxwell's car at the last second. A man with no family, no one who'd miss him, no one who'd question his identity. It was monstrous. It was evil. It was exactly what Maxwell had to do to survive. He crawled into the alley Iris had told him to reach, found the car she'd left there, the fake ID, the cash, the instructions for where to go next. And he followed them, because what else could he do? Maxwell Crawford died that morning, burned beyond recognition in a tragic car accident on his way to identify his mother's body. The news covered it extensively. Billionaire's tragic end. Lost his wife, his mother, and finally his own life, all within the same year. Such a shame, such a tragedy. But Maxwell wasn't dead. He was alive, hiding in a motel 40 miles outside the city, watching his own funeral on TV, watching his employees mourn, watching the board of directors at Crawford Technologies announce the succession plan, watching the world move on without him. And somewhere, in another safe house, his children were being protected by Iris, were growing and learning and becoming whatever Vanessa had designed them to be. Maxwell had 3 years. 3 years to stay hidden, 3 years to become someone new, 3 years to prepare for the day when he could fight back. 3 years felt like an eternity, but it was also the blink of an eye, because what Maxwell didn't know yet, what Iris hadn't told him, was that Meridian was smarter than they thought, more ruthless, more determined, and they were about to make a move that would change everything, a move that would force Maxwell out of hiding early, that would expose Vanessa's location, that would put the children in more danger than ever before. A move involving someone Maxwell trusted, someone close to the family, someone who'd been working for Meridian all along. The traitor was about to reveal themselves, and when they did, all of Vanessa's careful planning would come crashing down. But Maxwell didn't know that yet. Right now, in this moment, he thought he was safe, thought the plan was working, thought his sacrifice mattered. He had no idea how wrong he was. No idea that the worst was yet to come. No idea that the real nightmare was just beginning. And neither did Iris. Neither did Vanessa. Neither did anyone. Because the mole inside their organization was about to make their move, and nothing would ever be the same again. 6 months after Maxwell Crawford's supposed death, a woman walked into a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, wearing oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap pulled low over her face. She ordered a black coffee, paid in cash, and sat in the corner booth where she could see both exits. This had become her routine. Different cities, different coffee shops, always watching, always ready to run. The woman was Vanessa Crawford, and she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life. Her phone buzzed, a video call from Iris. Vanessa glanced around the coffee shop, confirmed no one was paying attention to her, and answered. "We have a problem," Iris said without preamble. Her face on the screen looked tense. Behind her, Vanessa could see the children playing. Emma, Ethan, and Ella, now almost 3 years old, were building an elaborate tower out of blocks while discussing physics principles in French. "What kind of problem?" Vanessa asked, her stomach already knotting with dread. "The children are developing faster than we anticipated," Iris said. "They've already started accessing fragments of the embedded information. Emma asked me this morning about protein synthesis pathways. Ethan wanted to know about quantum entanglement. Ella drew a chemical formula for the genetic enhancement compound from memory. They're not supposed to be able to do this for another 2 years." Vanessa felt her blood run cold. "That's impossible. I programmed the neural pathways to activate gradually. They shouldn't be accessing complex information until at least age 5. "Well, they are," Iris said. "And if they're developing this fast, Meridian will figure it out. They have people watching, monitoring. They'll notice the children exhibiting abilities beyond their age. And when they do, they'll move to extract the information before the children are old enough to defend themselves. We need to accelerate the timeline," Vanessa said immediately. "Bring Maxwell back into the picture. Reunite the family. We can't wait 3 years anymore." "It's too risky," Iris protested. "Maxwell's new identity isn't fully established yet. If we bring him back now, there's a chance Meridian will trace him. We'll figure out he's alive. We'll use him against us. And if we don't bring him back, our children might be dead in 6 months," Vanessa shot back. "They need their father. They've been asking about him, and Maxwell needs to know what's happening. He deserves to know his sacrifice might not have been enough." Iris was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "There's something else. Something I haven't told you. Something Maxwell doesn't know either." "What?" Vanessa demanded. "Someone's been helping Meridian track us," Iris said. "Someone on the inside. Someone who knows our safe houses, our protocols, our plans. We've moved 4 times in 6 months, and each time Meridian has found us within weeks. We have a leak, Vanessa, and I don't know who it is." Vanessa's mind raced through the possibilities. The safe houses were known only to herself, Iris, and a handful of trusted contacts from their old research days. People who'd helped them escape from Meridian, people who'd sworn loyalty, people Vanessa had trusted with her children's lives. Who has access to our locations? Vanessa asked. You, me, and three others, Iris said. Dr. Raymond Cole in Seattle. He's been providing medical care for the children. Dr. Patricia Moreno in Chicago. She's been securing our false documentation. And Jacob Chen in Boston. He's been managing the financial side, hiding your assets, making sure we have resources. All people we worked with at Meridian, Vanessa said slowly. All people who know what we're running from. Exactly, Iris confirmed. One of them is a traitor. One of them has been feeding information to Meridian for months. And I think they're about to make their move. I think they're planning to grab the children soon, before they get any older, before the information becomes too developed to extract cleanly. Vanessa stood up from the coffee shop booth, her coffee forgotten. We need to move the children now, today. Get them somewhere completely off-grid, somewhere even I don't know about. Can you do that? Yes, Iris said. But Vanessa, if we go completely dark, you won't be able to contact us. Won't know where your own children are. Can you handle that? Could she? Vanessa had already spent 8 months watching her children from a distance. 8 months of not being able to hold them, not being able to comfort them when they cried at night, not being able to explain why mommy had to go away. It had been the hardest thing she'd ever done. Harder than faking her death. Harder than leaving Maxwell. Harder than running from everything she'd known. But if it kept them safe, she could do it for another few months. She had to. Do it, Vanessa said. Take them somewhere safe. And Iris, be careful. If the traitor is who I think it is, they're more dangerous than Meridian itself. Who do you suspect? Iris asked. But before Vanessa could answer, someone sat down across from her in the coffee shop booth. A man she recognized immediately. A man who shouldn't have been able to find her. Dr. Raymond Cole, the Seattle doctor who'd been providing medical care for the triplets. One of the 3 people who knew about their safe houses. Hello, Vanessa, Raymond said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. We need to talk. Vanessa's hand moved toward the weapon she kept in her purse. But Raymond was faster. He placed something on the table between them. A phone. On the screen was a live video feed of a house Vanessa recognized. The current safe house. The one where Iris and the children were right now. I wouldn't do anything rash, Raymond said quietly. I have 3 armed men watching that house. If I don't check in with them, every 15 minutes, they go inside and take the children. And unlike you and Iris, they won't be gentle about it. Vanessa's hand froze. On her phone, she could see Iris still talking, unaware that someone was threatening her children in real time. Unaware that the doctor they'd trusted had betrayed them. What do you want? Vanessa asked, her voice deadly calm. What I've always wanted, Raymond said. Recognition, respect, my fair share of the credit for the work we did together. You and Iris became famous in our field. Published papers, won awards, got your names on patents. But I was just the assistant, just the second-tier researcher. Just the person doing the grunt work while you 2 got all the glory. So this is about ego? Vanessa asked incredulously. About professional jealousy? You're willing to hurt children over a grudge. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get what's owed to me, Raymond corrected. The genetic enhancement technique you developed is worth billions, and I helped create it. I deserve my share. You didn't help create it, Vanessa said. You ran tests. You compiled data. You did valuable work. But the breakthrough was mine and Iris's. You know that. That's not how Meridian sees it, Raymond said. They've offered me a very generous position, head of their genetic research division, unlimited funding, my own team. All I have to do is deliver the children to them. They'll extract the information from their neural pathways, replicate the enhancement technique, and I'll be rich and famous. Everything I should have been if you hadn't stolen the credit. Vanessa wanted to reach across the table and strangle him, but she kept her voice level. The extraction will kill them. You know that. The procedure is too invasive, too dangerous. My children will die, and you'll have helped murder them. Unfortunate, Raymond said without emotion, but necessary. Science requires sacrifice. You taught me that. I never taught you to sacrifice children, Vanessa said. If you do this, if you turn my babies over to Meridian, I will spend the rest of my life hunting you. I will destroy you. I will make sure you never work again. Never have a moment of peace. I will ruin you so completely that you'll wish you died with my children. Raymond's smile widened. Threats are meaningless when you're the one with the power, Vanessa. And right now, I hold all the cards. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Iris. You're going to tell her to bring the children to a location I provide. You're going to surrender yourself and them to Meridian. And in exchange, I'll make sure the extraction is as painless as possible. They'll die quickly, humanely. That's the best deal you're going to get. Never, Vanessa said. I'll die before I let you touch them. That can be arranged too, Raymond said pleasantly. But your death won't save them. It will just make the extraction more traumatic. Because without you there to comfort them, they'll be terrified. They'll cry for mommy, and mommy won't come. Is that really how you want their last moments to be? Vanessa felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she wouldn't cry, wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Instead, she made a decision. A desperate, dangerous decision, but the only one she had. Fine, Vanessa said. I'll make the call, but I want something in return. You're not in a position to negotiate, Raymond said. I'm in the only position that matters, Vanessa countered. Because without my cooperation, this gets messy. I disappear. Iris runs with the children. You spend months tracking us down again. Meridian gets impatient with you, fires you, maybe kills you for failing. But if I cooperate, if I make this easy, you get what you want quickly and cleanly. That's worth something. Raymond considered this. What do you want? I want Maxwell, Vanessa said. My husband. Bring him here. Let me see him one last time before we go to Meridian. Let me explain to him what's happening. Let me say goodbye. Maxwell's dead, Raymond said. Everyone knows that. Everyone's wrong, Vanessa said. He's alive, living under a new identity, waiting for the day we could reunite. I want to see him before I die, before our children die. That's my price for cooperation. Raymond pulled out his phone and made a call, spoke quietly to someone on the other end. Then he hung up and looked at Vanessa. Meridian says they can find Maxwell within 24 hours, Raymond said. They've been monitoring all known associates of Crawford Technologies, following money trails. They suspected he might be alive. If they can locate him and bring him here, you'll get your goodbye. But then you, Maxwell, and the children all go to Meridian. Together, as a family, those are the terms. It was a trap. Vanessa knew it was a trap. But it was also an opportunity. If she could get Maxwell here, if she could reunite with him and Iris, they might have a chance to fight back, to turn the tables, to escape. It was a slim chance. Almost no chance at all, but it was better than nothing. Deal, Vanessa said. Find Maxwell, bring him here, and I'll cooperate. Smart choice, Raymond said, standing up. My men will continue watching the safe house. If Iris tries to run, they'll take the children by force. So I suggest you call her and tell her to stay put. Tell her everything's fine. Tell her you'll be in touch soon with new instructions. Can you do that? Yes, Vanessa said through gritted teeth. Excellent, Raymond said. I'll be in touch when we have Maxwell. Until then, enjoy your coffee. Oh, and Vanessa, if you try to warn anyone, if you deviate from this plan in any way, I'll have the children taken immediately. And I promise you the extraction will be far more painful than it needs to be. I'll make sure they suffer. Just to punish you for your defiance. Understood? Understood, Vanessa whispered. Raymond walked away, leaving Vanessa sitting alone in the coffee shop with her cold coffee and her racing heart and her desperate plan that probably wouldn't work, but was all she had left. She looked at her phone, at Iris's face on the screen. Iris was still talking, still explaining the children's rapid development, still worried about their safety, unaware that a threat was literally surrounding her at that very moment. Vanessa, are you there? Did you hear what I said? Iris asked. I heard, Vanessa said carefully, aware that Raymond might be listening somehow. I need you to stay where you are. Don't move the children. Not yet. I'm working on something. A plan. Trust me. Iris's eyes narrowed. What kind of plan? The kind we don't discuss on open channels, Vanessa said. Just trust me. Stay there. Keep the children safe. I'll contact you in a few hours with more details. Vanessa, Iris started to protest. Trust me, Vanessa repeated, putting every ounce of meaning she could into those two words, hoping Iris would understand that something was wrong, that danger was close, that she needed to be careful. Iris stared at her through the screen for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. I trust you. We'll wait to hear from you. Vanessa ended the call and sat back in the coffee shop booth. Her mind was already racing through scenarios, possibilities, ways to turn this disaster into an opportunity. Raymond thought he'd won, thought he'd backed her into a corner with no way out. But Raymond had always underestimated her, had always seen her as just a brilliant scientist, not a mother, not a woman who would burn the world down to protect her children. He was about to learn the difference. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in a small apartment in Miami, a man named David Winters was making coffee when his door exploded inward. 3 armed men in tactical gear rushed in, weapons raised, shouting commands. David dropped his coffee mug, raised his hands, and stared in shock at the men surrounding him. What's happening? Who are you? I haven't done anything. David Winters doesn't exist, one of the men said. But Maxwell Crawford does, and you're coming with us. Maxwell's blood turned to ice. His false identity had been blown. Somehow, despite all of Vanessa and Iris's careful planning, Meridian had found him, had tracked him down, had discovered he was alive. I don't know what you're talking about, Maxwell said, trying to play dumb. My name is David Winters. I'm a freelance consultant. Check my ID, check my... One of the men hit him, hard. Maxwell fell to his knees, tasting blood. We know who you are, the man said. We know your wife is alive. We know where your children are, and we know you've been in contact with them. So stop pretending and come quietly, unless you want this to get more unpleasant. Maxwell's mind raced. How did they know he'd been in contact with his family? He hadn't been. That was the whole point of the separation. He'd spent 6 months in this identity without reaching out to anyone from his old life, without making contact, without leaving traces, unless someone had betrayed him, someone who knew he was alive, someone who'd told Meridian. Fine, Maxwell said, spitting blood. I'll come, but I want to see my wife first. If you know where she is, take me to her. Let me see her one last time. Then I'll cooperate with whatever you want. The men looked at each other. One of them made a phone call, spoke quietly, then hung up. Your wife made the same request, the man said. Interesting. Almost like you're still coordinating despite the separation. Almost like this was planned. It wasn't planned. Maxwell hadn't spoken to Vanessa in 8 months, hadn't known where she was or what she was doing. But if she'd asked to see him, that meant something had gone wrong, meant she needed him, meant the plan was falling apart. Take me to her, Maxwell said, now. Oh, we will, the man said with an unpleasant smile, and then we'll take all of you to Meridian. Your wife, your children, your whole treasonous little family, and Dr. Cole will finally get the recognition he deserves for turning you in. Dr. Cole, Raymond, the Seattle doctor, the traitor Iris had suspected. Maxwell filed that information away. If he survived this, if they found a way out, Raymond Cole would pay for his betrayal. Maxwell would make sure of it personally. They zip-tied Maxwell's hands, put a black bag over his head, and dragged him out of his apartment. He was thrown into a vehicle, driven for what felt like hours but was probably only 40 minutes. When the bag was finally removed, Maxwell found himself back in Portland, Oregon, in a coffee shop he'd never been to before. At a booth where a woman sat waiting, a woman who looked thinner than he remembered, older, more tired, but still unmistakably his wife. Vanessa, Maxwell breathed. Maxwell, Vanessa said, and her voice cracked on his name. The men who'd brought Maxwell shoved him into the booth across from Vanessa, stood back but stayed close, watching, making sure this reunion didn't turn into an escape attempt. You have 5 minutes, one of the men said. Then we're moving you to the extraction facility. Say your goodbyes. Vanessa reached across the table and took Maxwell's bound hands in hers. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry for lying to you, for faking my death, for putting you through all of this. I thought I was protecting you, protecting the children, but I just made everything worse. You were trying to save them, Maxwell said. I understand that now. I've had 6 months to think about everything, to process the lies and the secrets and the impossible situation. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just here, with you. For whatever time we have left. We're not dead yet, Vanessa said, and there was steel in her voice. Raymond thinks he's won, thinks he's outsmarted us, but he's forgotten something important, something Meridian doesn't know. What? Maxwell asked. The children aren't the only ones with enhanced genetics, Vanessa whispered, so quietly the guards couldn't hear. I tested the process on myself first, before I ever used it on Emma, Ethan, and Ella. I have abilities they don't know about, abilities I've been hiding, waiting for the right moment to use them. Maxwell stared at his wife. What kind of abilities? The kind that might get us out of this, Vanessa said. If we're smart, if we're lucky, if everything goes exactly right. And if it doesn't? Maxwell asked. Then we die, Vanessa said simply. But at least we die together, as a family. That's better than I hoped for this morning. One of the guards checked his watch. Time's up, let's move. They were hauled out of the coffee shop and into a waiting van. But as they were being loaded in, Maxwell noticed something. Vanessa's right hand was making a subtle gesture, a signal, something only someone looking for it would see. Maxwell had spent years in business learning to read body language, to pick up on subtle cues. He recognized what Vanessa was doing. She was communicating with someone watching from a distance. Iris or someone else? The van doors closed. The vehicle started moving, and Maxwell realized they weren't being taken to some Meridian facility. They were being driven to the safe house, to where the children were. Raymond wanted them all in one place, wanted the whole family together when he handed them over to Meridian, wanted to see the look on Vanessa's face when her children were taken from her. But what Raymond didn't realize was that bringing them to the safe house was exactly what Vanessa wanted, because that's where Iris was. That's where whatever plan Vanessa had concocted would happen. That's where they'd make their stand. The van pulled up outside a modest suburban house 40 minutes outside Portland. The kind of house that looked completely normal, completely innocent. The kind of place where a family might live, where children might play in the backyard, where neighbors would wave and never suspect anything unusual. Perfect camouflage. Maxwell and Vanessa were dragged out of the van. The guards knocked on the front door in a specific pattern, some kind of code. The door opened, and there stood Raymond Cole, looking far too pleased with himself. Welcome home, Raymond said mockingly. The children are upstairs with Iris. Why don't we have a nice family reunion before we all head to Meridian together? They were pushed inside. The house was quiet, too quiet. Maxwell's instincts screamed danger. Something was wrong. This was too easy. Raymond was too confident. They climbed the stairs, reached the nursery door. Raymond opened it with a flourish, and inside, sitting calmly with the triplets, was Iris. But she wasn't alone. Standing behind her, with weapons drawn, were 6 more Meridian operatives. The house was completely surrounded, completely compromised. There was no escape. Surprise, Raymond said. Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate you trying something? I've been planning this for months, Vanessa. Every contingency, every possibility. There is no way out, no clever escape, no last-minute rescue. You've lost. Vanessa looked at the children, at Emma, Ethan, and Ella, who were watching their mother with those impossibly intelligent eyes. And then Vanessa smiled, a real smile, a confident smile, a smile that made Raymond's grin falter. You're right, Vanessa said. I have lost. We all have. Which means there's only one option left. She pulled something from her pocket, a small device with a single red button, a dead man's switch that had been programmed to activate if she let go or if her heart stopped. This house is rigged with explosives, Vanessa said calmly. Every room, every exit, enough C4 to level the entire structure and everyone in it. If you try to take the children, I blow us all up. If you try to shoot me, the dead man's switch activates and we all die. So here's my counteroffer. You let my family walk out of here. Let us go. And in exchange, I'll give you the activation codes for accessing the information in the children's brains. You can replicate the enhancement technique without needing to dissect my babies. Everyone gets what they want. Everyone lives. It was a bluff, a massive, desperate bluff. The house wasn't rigged with explosives. Vanessa didn't have activation codes. But Raymond didn't know that. And for a moment, just a moment, Maxwell saw doubt flicker across the doctor's face. "You're lying," Raymond said, but his voice lacked certainty. "Am I?" Vanessa asked. "Do you really want to test that theory? Do you really want to risk blowing up yourself, your operatives, and the children you came here to capture? Think carefully, Raymond, because if I'm not lying, your next decision determines whether you leave here rich and famous or leave here in pieces." The room was silent, everyone frozen, everyone waiting to see what Raymond would do. And then Emma spoke, her voice clear and calm and far too adult for a 3-year-old. "She's not lying," Emma said in perfect English. "The house is rigged. We helped. Ethan understands demolitions. Ella understands chemistry. I understand trigger mechanisms. Mama taught us. We've been preparing for this day since we could walk. And if you don't let us go right now, we're all going to die together." She wasn't lying either. Maxwell could see it in the children's eyes. See the understanding there. See the readiness to follow through if necessary. His 3-year-old children were prepared to blow themselves up rather than be captured. Vanessa hadn't just enhanced their intelligence. She'd trained them, taught them, prepared them for war, had turned her babies into soldiers who understood sacrifice. Maxwell didn't know whether to be proud or horrified. Probably both. Raymond's hand moved toward his weapon. "I don't believe you. You wouldn't kill your own children." "Try me," Vanessa said, and her thumb moved closer to the button. The tension in the room was unbearable. Everyone held their breath. Everyone waited. And then the lights went out. Complete darkness. Someone had cut the power to the entire house. And in that moment of confusion, in that split second of distraction, everything happened at once. Gunfire, shouting, the sound of bodies hitting the floor. Maxwell felt someone grab him, pull him down, shield him from the chaos. Vanessa's voice in his ear, "Stay down. Trust me." More gunfire, more shouting, then silence. Heavy, oppressive silence. Maxwell lay on the floor, his heart hammering, unable to see anything in the pitch black. Then a light clicked on, a flashlight, and in its beam, Maxwell saw a scene from a nightmare. 6 Meridian operatives on the ground, unconscious or dead. Raymond Cole against the wall with a dart in his neck, slumping down as whatever tranquilizer it contained took effect. Iris standing with a weapon Maxwell hadn't known she owned, and Vanessa holding their children, all of them safe, all of them unharmed. "What just happened?" Maxwell gasped. "Plan B," Iris said calmly. "Vanessa's signal in the coffee shop activated our backup team. They've been in position for the last 2 hours. When Meridian brought you here, they followed. When the operatives surrounded the house, our team surrounded them. We've been waiting for the right moment. Vanessa's bluff with the explosives created the perfect distraction." "So there are no explosives?" Maxwell asked. "Oh, there are explosives," Vanessa corrected. "Just not in the house. They're in the vehicles outside. We're going to need a new way to leave, but that's a minor problem compared to what we just accomplished." "Which is what?" Maxwell asked, still trying to process everything. "We captured Raymond," Vanessa said with satisfaction. "He knows who else is working with Meridian, who the other traitors are, where Meridian's facilities are located, everything. And by the time we're done interrogating him, we'll have everything we need to destroy them, to expose them, to make sure they can never hurt another family the way they hurt ours." Maxwell looked at the unconscious operatives, at Raymond slumped against the wall, at his wife standing there with a competence and ruthlessness he'd never seen before, at his children who'd been prepared to die rather than be captured, at Iris who'd revealed skills that went far beyond childcare. His family wasn't who he'd thought they were, weren't what he'd expected, were something stranger and more dangerous and more capable than Maxwell had imagined. "What happens now?" Maxwell asked. "Now," Vanessa said, "we take the fight to them. We've been running for 8 months, hiding, surviving. But I'm done with that. I'm done with being afraid. I'm done with letting Meridian dictate our lives. They killed people we loved. They tried to steal our children. They need to pay, and we're going to make sure they do." "How?" Maxwell asked. Vanessa smiled. that same dangerous smile she'd given Raymond. By becoming what they fear most, by using the very thing they wanted to steal, the children's enhanced genetics, the information in their neural pathways. We're going to access it early. We're going to teach Emma, Ethan, and Ella everything they need to know. And then we're going to turn my babies into weapons that will tear Meridian apart from the inside. They're 3 years old, Maxwell protested. You can't. I can, Vanessa interrupted. And I will, because Meridian won't stop. You saw that today. They'll keep coming, keep hunting, keep trying to take what's ours. The only way to end this is to end them. Completely. Permanently. And the only tools we have are the ones I build into our children's DNA. Maxwell looked at Emma, Ethan, and Ella. They were watching this conversation with perfect understanding. They knew what their mother was proposing, knew what it meant. And they weren't protesting, weren't crying, weren't acting like normal 3-year-olds who should have been terrified by the violence they just witnessed. They looked ready, willing, almost eager. This is wrong, Maxwell said, using our children as weapons, training them to fight, putting them in danger. Vanessa, this is exactly what Meridian wanted to do. We're becoming what we're fighting against. No, Vanessa said firmly. Meridian wanted to create mindless soldiers, obedient operatives with no free will. I created thinking, feeling children who can choose their own path. And right now, their path leads through Meridian, through the organization that killed my colleagues, that destroyed our lives, that tried to steal our babies. Emma, Ethan, Ella, do you understand what I'm asking? Yes, Mama, Emma said. And do you agree? Vanessa asked. Do you want to help us fight the bad people? It will be dangerous, scary, hard. You'll have to learn things and do things that children shouldn't have to learn or do. But it's the only way to make sure we're safe. The only way to make sure other families don't suffer like we have. Do you want to do this? The 3 children looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Then they turned back to their mother and nodded in unison. Yes, Mama, they said together. We want to help. Vanessa looked at Maxwell. There's your answer. They're choosing this. I'm not forcing them. They understand the stakes and they're willing to fight. Can you accept that? Can you support them? Or will you stand in the way? Maxwell wanted to say no, wanted to grab his children and run, wanted to find a way to give them a normal life where they played with toys and went to school and worried about homework instead of fighting evil organizations. But looking at their faces, seeing the intelligence there, the determination, the readiness, Maxwell realized that ship had sailed. His children would never be normal, would never have an ordinary life. Vanessa had seen to that when she'd enhanced their genetics, when she'd embedded classified information in their brains, when she'd turned them into living weapons. The only question now was whether Maxwell would help them become weapons they controlled, or abandon them to become weapons someone else controlled. Fine, Maxwell said, the word tasting like ashes in his mouth. I'm in. But Vanessa, when this is over, when Meridian is destroyed, we're done. We're out. We give our children the chance at a normal life. Deal? Deal, Vanessa agreed. Now come on. We need to get out of here before Meridian sends backup. Iris, secure Raymond. We're taking him with us. Everyone else, let's move. They left the safe house through a hidden basement exit Vanessa had prepared months ago. Emerged 3 blocks away in a parking garage where vehicles were waiting. Vehicles Maxwell had never seen before. Resources he hadn't known existed. His wife had been busy during their 8 months apart, building networks, gathering assets, preparing for war. As they drove away from the scene, as Maxwell held his children close and watched the safe house fade into the distance, he realized something profound. His old life was truly gone now. The businessman, the billionaire, the normal father. That person had died in the car accident 6 months ago. What had emerged from the flames was someone harder, someone capable of things Maxwell Crawford would never have done. Someone who could look at his 3-year-old children and see soldiers, see weapons, see the tools necessary for survival in a war he never asked to fight. Maxwell didn't like this new version of himself, but he was stuck with it because the alternative was losing everything that mattered, and Maxwell had already lost too much. Behind them, in the safe house, Raymond Cole woke up to find himself in a basement he didn't recognize, tied to a chair he couldn't escape from, facing a woman who looked at him with the cold calculation of someone who'd already decided he was dead. Iris Washington, the partner he'd betrayed, the friend he'd sold out, the last person he wanted to be alone with. "Hello, Raymond," Iris said quietly. "We need to have a conversation about Meridian, about the people you've been working with, about where their facilities are and how we can destroy them. And you're going to tell me everything." "Do you know how I know you'll tell me everything?" Raymond stared at her in fear. "How?" "Because I've already lost my husband and daughter to these people," Iris said, and her voice was death itself. "Which means I have nothing left to lose, nothing holding me back, nothing stopping me from doing whatever it takes to get the information I need. So talk, Raymond. Tell me everything, or I'll spend the next week showing you exactly what a woman with nothing to lose is capable of. Your choice." Raymond looked into Iris's eyes and saw his future there. Saw pain and suffering and a death that would not be quick or merciful. And he started talking. Told her everything, every secret, every location, every name, every detail about Meridian's operations that he knew, because he'd made his choice when he betrayed Vanessa and Iris, and now he was living with the consequences, would spend whatever time he had left living with them, which, based on the look in Iris's eyes, wouldn't be very long at all. The war had begun, and Meridian was about to discover that the family they'd been hunting wasn't prey. They were predators, and they were coming. 2 years after the confrontation at the safe house, Emma, Ethan, and Ella Crawford were 5 years old. They should have been in kindergarten, learning their ABCs and how to share crayons. Instead, they were in an underground facility 300 miles from anywhere, learning advanced biochemistry, quantum physics, and tactical combat strategies. And they were excelling at all of it. Maxwell stood in the observation room, watching his children through a one-way mirror as they worked through a complex problem set that would challenge most graduate students. Emma was explaining protein folding patterns to her siblings in Mandarin. Ethan was building a three-dimensional molecular model from memory. Ella was writing chemical equations that would revolutionize medicine if anyone outside this facility ever saw them. They were brilliant, terrifying, and still, somehow, his babies. "How are they doing?" Vanessa asked, joining Maxwell at the window. She looked better than she had 2 years ago, stronger, more focused. The hunted look in her eyes had been replaced by something harder, something that made Maxwell's chest ache, because he remembered when his wife had been soft and kind and hadn't looked at the world like a battlefield. "They're amazing," Maxwell said, "and that terrifies me. Vanessa, they're 5 years old. They should be playing with toys and watching cartoons, not planning military operations against a shadow organization." "They're not planning operations," Vanessa corrected. "They're learning, preparing, understanding what they are and what they're capable of. When the time comes to actually fight, they'll be older, stronger, ready." "When?" Maxwell asked. "When is the time coming? How much longer do we train them? How much longer do we hide? We've been preparing for 2 years. We have all of Raymond's information about Meridian's facilities, their operatives, their plans. When do we actually move against them?" "Soon," Vanessa said. "Very soon. We just need to confirm one more thing. The location of Meridian's main research facility, the place where they keep their most important assets. Raymond didn't know where it was, but we've been tracking their shipments, their communications, their movements. We're close to finding it. Once we do, we strike. We take down their headquarters. We expose everything. We end this." "And what happens to the children after?" Maxwell asked. "After Meridian is destroyed? Can we actually give them a normal life, like I made you promise? Or have we broken them so badly that normal is impossible now?" Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I don't know, Maxwell. I want to believe they can have normal lives, that they can go to regular school, make regular friends, have regular childhoods. But the truth is, I don't know if that's possible anymore. We've changed them, not just genetically, but psychologically. They've seen violence. They understand danger. They know things children should never know. We can't unknow that for them. So we've sacrificed our children's innocence to fight our war? Maxwell said bitterly. We've done exactly what I swore we wouldn't do. We've become monsters. We've become survivors, Vanessa corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Maxwell asked. Because from where I'm standing, the line looks pretty blurry. Before Vanessa could respond, Iris burst into the observation room, her face tight with urgency. We have a problem, a big one. I just got word from our contact in Seattle. Meridian knows about this facility. They're moving in. We have maybe 2 hours before they arrive in force. Maxwell's blood turned to ice. How did they find us? We've been so careful. It doesn't matter how, Iris interrupted. What matters is we need to evacuate. Now, get the children. Grab the critical research. Everything else gets left behind. We have exactly 1 hour to pack and disappear. They moved with practiced efficiency. 2 years of running had taught them how to abandon a location quickly. The children were pulled from their lessons, given their pre-packed bags, and moved to the waiting vehicles. No tears. No complaints. Just the grim acceptance of 5-year-olds who'd learned that running was part of life. Maxwell helped load equipment into the trucks while Vanessa worked with Iris to wipe the facility's computer systems. Everything that couldn't be carried had to be destroyed. Meridian couldn't get their hands on any of the research, any of the information, any clue about where the Crawford family was headed next. They were almost done when the first explosion rocked the facility. That was too soon, Iris said, her face going pale. They shouldn't be here yet. We calculated 2 hours. Your calculations were wrong, a familiar voice said from the doorway. Maxwell spun around and felt his heart stop. Standing in the entrance to the facility, surrounded by armed operatives, was someone he recognized, someone he'd trusted. Someone who'd been helping them for the past 2 years. Dr. Patricia Moreno, the Chicago contact who'd been securing their false documentation. One of Vanessa's former colleagues from Meridian, one of the people they'd thought was on their side. Patricia? Vanessa breathed. No, you've been helping us. You've been playing you, Patricia finished with a cold smile. Did you really think I'd betray Meridian? They gave me everything. Position, prestige, resources. Why would I throw that away to help you in your little rebellion? I've been feeding Meridian information for 2 years, telling them everywhere you went, every safe house you used, every plan you made. The only reason they didn't grab you sooner was because I convinced them to wait, to let you develop the children's abilities, to let them access more of the encoded information. Now that they're 5, now that they're starting to consciously tap into what you programmed, they're valuable enough to take. And that's exactly what we're doing. Maxwell felt like he'd been punched. 2 years. 2 years of trusting this woman. 2 years of her helping them, or so they'd thought. And all that time she'd been working for Meridian, feeding them information, setting them up for this exact moment. Where are the children? Maxwell demanded, suddenly realizing Emma, Ethan, and Ella weren't in the room anymore. Safe, Iris said quickly. I sent them out the emergency exit the moment we heard that explosion. They're with Jacob. He'll get them away from here. Jacob Chen, Patricia laughed. The financial contact? Oh, Iris. Sweet, naive Iris. Jacob's been working with me from the beginning. He's not rescuing the children. He's delivering them. Right now, he's putting them in a Meridian transport. By the time you realize what's happened, they'll be halfway to the extraction facility. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. No, Vanessa whispered. No, no, no. Jacob was your friend. We worked together for years. He wouldn't. He absolutely would, Patricia said. For $5 million in a position as head of Meridian's financial division. Everyone has a price, Vanessa. You should know that by now. You're a scientist. Everything can be bought. Loyalty, friendship, even love. It's just a matter of finding the right currency. Maxwell's rage exploded. He lunged at Patricia, but 3 operatives grabbed him before he got close. He fought them, screaming, struggling, but they were too strong. They forced him to his knees, hands zip-tied behind his back. Where are they taking my children? Maxwell demanded. Where's the extraction facility? Like I'd tell you that, Patricia said. But don't worry, you'll be joining them soon. Meridian wants the whole family. They want to study all of you, figure out exactly what Vanessa did to create the children, see if it can be replicated, and if it can't, well, they'll have the children to experiment on for the next few decades. Think of all the knowledge they'll gain, all the advances in genetic science. Your children will contribute to the future of humanity, just not in the way you hoped. Vanessa had gone very still, very quiet. Maxwell recognized that look. It was the expression she got when she was thinking, calculating, planning, and when she spoke, her voice was calm, almost casual. Patricia, before you take us to Meridian, I need to tell you something important. Something about the children's genetics that Raymond never knew. Something I never told anyone, because I was saving it for exactly this situation. I'm not interested in your desperate lies, Patricia said. It's not a lie, Vanessa said. It's a failsafe. You see, I knew there was a chance the children might be captured, that someone might try to extract the information from their brains. So I built in a defense mechanism. If anyone tries to access their neural pathways without the proper deactivation code, it triggers a cascade. Their enhanced neurons start breaking down, releasing toxins. Within 24 hours of an unauthorized extraction attempt, they'll be dead, brain dead, with nothing to show for it except 3 corpses and 0 information. Patricia's smile faltered. You're bluffing. Am I? Vanessa asked. Do you really want to test that? Do you want to risk killing the most valuable assets Meridian has ever had? Think about it, Patricia. If you're wrong, if I'm telling the truth, you'll have delivered 3 dead children to Meridian. You'll have failed spectacularly, and you know what Meridian does to people who fail them. You've seen it. So here's my offer. Let me go to the children. Let me deactivate the failsafe. Then you can have them. You can have all of us. Everyone gets what they want. Everyone survives. Patricia stared at Vanessa for a long moment. Maxwell could see the calculation happening, the risk assessment. The fear of what Meridian would do if she brought them dead children instead of living assets. How do I know you won't try to escape with them? Patricia asked. Because you'll keep Maxwell and Iris as hostages, Vanessa said. I go to wherever Jacob took the children, alone, with 3 of your operatives watching me. I deactivate the failsafe, then we all go to Meridian together. You get your promotion and your money. Meridian gets their test subjects, and my family stays alive, at least for a while longer. That's better than we have right now. It was a desperate gamble. Maxwell had no idea if Vanessa was telling the truth about a failsafe, or if this was just an elaborate bluff to buy time. But he stayed quiet, letting his wife work, trusting that she had a plan, that she was still 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Patricia pulled out her phone and made a call, spoke quietly to someone on the other end, argued, negotiated, finally hung up. Fine, Patricia said, but if you try anything, if you deviate from the plan in any way, I'll have Maxwell executed, right in front of you, over a video call so you can watch him die. Understood? Understood, Vanessa said. They dragged Maxwell and Iris to a van, while Vanessa was taken to a different vehicle with 3 armed guards. Maxwell watched his wife disappear, wondering if he'd ever see her again, wondering if this was their last goodbye, wondering if Vanessa's plan, whatever it was, would actually work. The van drove for 40 minutes before stopping at what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Maxwell and Iris were hauled inside, tied to chairs in a cold, empty room. Patricia stood in front of them with a tablet showing a live video feed. This is the transport where your children are being held, Patricia said, turning the tablet so Maxwell could see. On the screen were Emma, Ethan, and Ella sitting in the back of a vehicle. They looked calm, almost serene, like they'd expected this, like they weren't scared at all. That scared Maxwell more than anything else. His children should have been terrified, should have been crying, should have been acting like the 5-year-olds they were. But they just sat there, waiting, watching, like little soldiers accepting their mission parameters. What had he and Vanessa done to them? Another feed appeared on the tablet. This one showed Vanessa being led into the same transport. She climbed inside and Maxwell watched as she hugged Emma, Ethan, and Ella. Whispered something to them. Then she pulled out what looked like a small injector and pressed it against each child's neck in turn. Deactivating the failsafe, Patricia said with satisfaction. See? She's cooperating. No tricks. No escape attempts. Just a mother protecting her children the only way she can. But Maxwell knew his wife, knew the way she thought, and watching her on that video feed, seeing the small smile on her face as she finished the injections, Maxwell realized what was actually happening. The injections weren't deactivating anything. They were activating something. Some other fail-safe Vanessa had built into the children, some backup plan she'd prepared for exactly this scenario. "You've made a mistake," Maxwell said to Patricia. "Whatever Vanessa just gave the children, it wasn't what you think." "Of course it was," Patricia said confidently. "My operatives watched her the entire time. She did exactly what she said she would. Deactivated the neural toxin cascade, made the children safe for extraction." "No," Maxwell said. "She didn't. And in about 5 minutes, you're going to realize what she actually did. And by then, it will be too late." "Too late for what?" Patricia demanded. Maxwell smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who'd learned from his wife how to think 3 steps ahead, how to prepare for every contingency, how to turn disaster into opportunity. "Too late to stop what's coming," Maxwell said. On the video feed, Emma suddenly stood up. Her eyes had changed, become distant, unfocused, like she was seeing something no one else could see. Ethan and Ella stood too, moving in perfect synchronization with their sister. They turned to look directly at the camera, directly at Maxwell. And then Emma spoke. But her voice was wrong, was different, was layered with something electronic, something artificial. "Defensive protocol activated," Emma said in a voice that was hers but also wasn't. "Threat detected. Elimination sequence initiated." The 3 operatives guarding the children suddenly grabbed their heads, screaming. They collapsed, seizing, bleeding from their noses and ears. Within seconds, they were dead. On Patricia's tablet, alarms started blaring. Vanessa grabbed the children and ran from the transport, disappearing into the night. The video feed cut out. Patricia stared at the blank screen in shock. What just happened? What did she do? "Something you didn't know was possible," Maxwell said. "Something Vanessa never told anyone about. The children's enhanced genetics don't just make them smarter, they make them capable of generating electromagnetic pulses. Focused, directed pulses that can overload human neural systems. That can kill with just a thought. Vanessa activated that ability, gave them the control codes, turned them into weapons that can defend themselves. And now they're loose, angry, scared, and extremely dangerous." "That's impossible," Patricia whispered. "Human beings can't generate electromagnetic fields strong enough to kill." "Normal human beings can't," Maxwell agreed. "But Emma, Ethan, and Ella aren't normal. They're what Vanessa designed them to be. The next evolution of humanity, with abilities you can't counter, with powers you can't defend against. You wanted to capture them? Experiment on them? Good luck with that, because my children are apex predators now, and you and Meridian are officially prey." Patricia's phone rang. She answered it, and Maxwell watched her face drain of color as whoever was on the other end delivered bad news. She hung up and looked at Maxwell with something approaching fear. "The transport was found empty. Your wife and children are gone. 6 of our operatives are dead. Another 4 are in comas, and we have no idea where they went." "Of course you don't," Maxwell said, "because Vanessa has been planning this for years. Every move, every contingency, every possible outcome. You thought you were hunting us? We've been hunting you. Learning your patterns, mapping your facilities, identifying your operatives. We let you think you were winning because it gave us time to prepare. But the game just changed. Patricia, now we're coming for you, for Meridian, for everyone involved in trying to hurt our family. And by the time we're done, your organization won't exist anymore." "You're insane," Patricia said. "You're one man tied to a chair. Your wife and children are fugitives with the entire resources of Meridian hunting them." "You've already lost." "Have I?" Maxwell asked. "Because I count at least 10 Meridian operatives dead in the last hour. Your transport destroyed, your extraction plan failed, and Vanessa and the children are loose with abilities you didn't know existed. That doesn't sound like losing to me. That sounds like we're just getting started." Patricia raised her weapon and pointed it at Maxwell's head. Then I guess I don't need you alive anymore. If I can't have the children, I'll settle for killing their father. Maybe that will draw them out, make them careless. Go ahead, Maxwell said calmly. Pull the trigger, but know that the moment you do, you seal your own fate. Because Emma, Ethan, and Ella can feel when their parents are hurt, can sense when we're in danger. It's part of how Vanessa designed them, a built-in protection instinct. You kill me and they'll know exactly where you are, and they'll come for you. 3 5-year-old children with the ability to kill with their minds. Good luck surviving that. Patricia's hand trembled. Maxwell could see the fear now, the realization that she'd miscalculated, that Vanessa had outplayed her, that trying to capture the Crawford children had been the worst mistake of Patricia's life. What do you want? Patricia asked, lowering her weapon slightly. I want you to let Iris and me go, Maxwell said. I want you to tell Meridian that you failed, that the assets escaped, that trying to continue this pursuit will only result in more dead operatives. And then I want you to run. Get as far from this situation as possible. Because when Vanessa comes back, and she will come back, she's going to destroy everyone involved in threatening her children. Your only chance at survival is to distance yourself from Meridian. Cooperate with us. Tell us where their headquarters is, who the leadership is, everything you know. If I do that, Meridian will kill me, Patricia said. And if you don't, we will, Maxwell replied. Your choice. But choose quickly, because my wife has a tracking device on me. She knows exactly where I am. And by my estimate, she'll be here with our weaponized children in about 15 minutes. You can either be gone by then, or you can try to explain to 3 angry 5-year-olds with electromagnetic murder abilities why you tried to hurt their family. Which do you think will go better for you? Patricia looked at Maxwell, at Iris, at the phone that kept buzzing with updates about more dead operatives and failed containment attempts, at a situation that had spiraled completely out of her control, and she made her choice. Fine, Patricia said, pulling out a knife and cutting Maxwell's bonds. I'll tell you everything, but we need to move, now. If Vanessa's really on her way here, we don't want to be anywhere near this location when she arrives. Smart decision, Maxwell said, rubbing his wrist where the zip ties had cut into his skin. He helped Iris up, and together they followed Patricia out of the warehouse. They were loading into a vehicle when Maxwell heard it, a sound that made every instinct in his body scream danger, a high-pitched whine that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. They're here, Iris whispered. The children. I can feel them. Maxwell felt it too, a presence, an awareness. 3 small consciousnesses reaching out, finding him, confirming he was safe. And with that confirmation came something else. A message, not in words but in feeling, in understanding. The children were saying goodbye to their father, because what happened next was something Maxwell couldn't be part of, something he couldn't witness, something that would haunt him forever if he saw it. We need to leave, Maxwell said urgently. Right now, don't look back. Don't stop. Just drive. Patricia didn't need to be told twice. She floored the accelerator and they sped away from the warehouse. Behind them, Maxwell heard screaming, heard explosions, heard the sound of Meridian operatives dying as 3 5-year-old children took their revenge. Emma, Ethan, and Ella were no longer the sweet babies Maxwell had held in his arms. They were weapons, killers, creatures that looked like children, but had become something far more dangerous. And Maxwell didn't know if he'd ever get his real children back, or if Vanessa's enhancements had destroyed who they were supposed to be, had turned them into monsters wearing his children's faces. But right now, those monsters were fighting for his family, were destroying the people who'd tried to hurt them, were giving Maxwell a chance to escape. And he wasn't going to waste that chance. They drove through the night, Patricia spilling everything she knew about Meridian, addresses, names, security protocols, financial accounts, everything. She was burning every bridge, committing professional suicide, but staying alive. That was the best deal she was going to get. As dawn broke, Maxwell's phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. We're safe. Meet at secondary location. The children are asking for you. They want their father. They want to know if you still love them after what they did. Maxwell read the message 3 times. His children, who'd just killed dozens of people, wanted to know if their father still loved them. 5-year-olds who'd become weapons wanted reassurance that they were still worthy of love. Maxwell typed back, "Tell them I love them more than anything in the world. Tell them I'm proud of them for protecting our family. Tell them Daddy's coming home." He meant it, every word, because Emma, Ethan, and Ella were still his children. Still the babies he'd held in the hospital. Still the toddlers who'd learned to speak in 3 languages. Still his responsibility, his purpose, his reason for fighting. They'd been changed by what Vanessa had done to them, been turned into something that shouldn't exist, but they were still human, still capable of love and fear and hope, still deserving of a father who would stand by them no matter what they'd become. The secondary location turned out to be a cabin in the mountains, so remote it didn't appear on any maps. When Maxwell arrived, Vanessa was waiting on the porch. She looked exhausted, haunted, older than her years, but alive. "Are they okay?" Maxwell asked, running to her. "The children, are they—" "They're asleep," Vanessa said. "The electromagnetic pulsability takes a lot out of them. They'll sleep for hours, maybe days. Their bodies need time to recover from generating that much energy." "How many people did they kill?" Maxwell asked. 17, Vanessa said quietly. 17 Meridian operatives. The children didn't want to, didn't enjoy it, but they understood it was necessary. They're carrying that burden now, Maxwell. The burden of being killers at age 5. I did that to them. I turned our babies into murderers because it was the only way to keep them alive. Maxwell pulled Vanessa into his arms. She broke down, sobbing against his chest. All the strength she'd shown for the past 2 years crumbling as she finally let herself feel the horror of what she'd done. "We did what we had to do," Maxwell said, even though the words felt hollow. "We survived. That's what matters." "Is it?" Vanessa asked. "Because I'm not sure anymore. I'm not sure the cost of survival was worth what we paid, what we turned our children into." Maxwell didn't have an answer for that, so he just held his wife while she cried, held her and wondered if any of them would ever truly recover from what they'd been through, what they'd done, what they'd become. Inside the cabin, Emma, Ethan, and Ella slept, dreaming dreams Maxwell hoped were peaceful, dreaming of a future where they could be children again, where they didn't have to be weapons, where they could just be loved. But Maxwell knew that future might never come, knew that Meridian would keep hunting them, would never stop, would never forgive what the Crawford family had done, which meant the war wasn't over. It had just entered a new phase, a phase where Maxwell and Vanessa had to figure out how to destroy Meridian completely while somehow protecting their children's remaining humanity. Had to find a way to win without losing everything that made them worth saving. It seemed impossible. But then again, everything about the last 3 years had seemed impossible, and they'd survived it all, had fought and clawed and sacrificed their way to this moment, to this cabin, to this chance at victory. Patricia's information would help, would give them targets, strategies, ways to strike at Meridian's infrastructure. And with the children's abilities, with Vanessa's intelligence, with Maxwell's determination, and with Iris's ruthless efficiency, they had a chance. A small chance, but a chance nonetheless. "What happens now?" Maxwell asked Vanessa. "Now," Vanessa said, wiping her eyes and straightening up, finding her strength again. "Now we finish this. We use Patricia's information. We hit Meridian where it hurts. We expose them to the world. We make sure they can never hurt another family. And then, when it's over, we try to give our children the normal life we promised them. Try to undo some of the damage we've done. Try to let them be kids. Even if it's too late, even if we've already destroyed their childhood, we try. Because that's all we can do now. Just keep trying." It was a plan, not a good plan, not a certain plan, but a plan. And it was more than they'd had this morning when Meridian had seemed like an unstoppable force that would eventually take everything. Maxwell looked toward the cabin where his children slept. Emma, Ethan, and Ella. 3 5-year-olds who'd killed 17 people to protect their family. Three kids who should have been watching cartoons and learning to read, but instead knew advanced physics and could kill with electromagnetic pulses. They were weapons now, but they were also still his children, and Maxwell would spend the rest of his life trying to help them be both, trying to give them the space to be dangerous when they needed to be, and innocent when they could be. It was an impossible balance. But Maxwell Crawford had spent the last 3 years doing impossible things. What was one more? He took Vanessa's hand, and together they walked into the cabin, toward their sleeping children. Toward whatever future they could build from the ashes of the war they'd been fighting. Meridian was still out there, still dangerous, still hunting, but the Crawford family wasn't running anymore. They were fighting back. And when this war finally ended, one way or another, Maxwell would make sure his family survived. Because that's what fathers did. They protected, they fought, they sacrificed. They did whatever it took to keep their children safe. Even if it meant turning those children into weapons. Even if it meant losing pieces of themselves along the way. Even if it meant becoming monsters to fight monsters. Maxwell had started this journey as a billionaire businessman who thought money could solve any problem. He'd been wrong about that, wrong about so many things, but he'd learned, had adapted, had become someone stronger. Someone capable of surviving in a world he'd never known existed, and now standing in that cabin with his wife and sleeping children, with Iris keeping watch outside and Patricia's information, giving them their first real advantage in years, Maxwell felt something he hadn't felt since Vanessa had faked her death 3 years ago. Hope. Not the naive hope of someone who thought everything would be okay, but the hard-earned hope of someone who knew the battle was far from over, but finally believed they might actually win it. Meridian had made a critical mistake. They'd underestimated Vanessa's intelligence, Maxwell's determination, the children's abilities, and most importantly, they'd underestimated what a family would do when pushed to the absolute limit. They'd thought breaking the Crawfords would be easy. Thought taking the children would be simple. Thought their superior resources and organization would overwhelm 5 desperate people. They'd been catastrophically wrong, and now they were going to pay for that mistake. Pay with their organization, their secrets, their freedom, everything they'd built on the suffering of people like Maxwell and Vanessa. The reckoning was coming, and the Crawford family would be the ones delivering it. But first, Maxwell had something more important to do. He walked to the bedroom where his children slept, sat beside their bed, took their small hands in his, and whispered a promise he intended to keep no matter what it cost him. I love you, all 3 of you, more than anything in this world. You did what you had to do today. You protected our family. You were brave and strong and amazing. But you're also still my babies, still the children I held the day you were born, still deserving of love and safety and happiness. And I'm going to give you that, somehow, some way. When this war's over, I'm going to give you the childhood you deserve, the life you should have had, the future Mommy and I took from you. That's my promise. That's what I'm fighting for. Not revenge, not justice, just you. Just our family. Just the chance to be together without fear. I love you. Never forget that. No matter what happens, no matter what you have to do, no matter what you become, I love you. Emma stirred in her sleep, squeezed Maxwell's hand, whispered 2 words that made tears stream down his face. Love you, Daddy. And in that moment, Maxwell knew. Knew with absolute certainty. His children weren't lost, weren't broken beyond repair. Weren't just weapons. They were still Emma, Ethan, and Ella. Still his kids. Still capable of love, which meant there was still hope. Still a chance at the normal life he'd promised Vanessa. Still a future worth fighting for. The war with Meridian would end. Victory or defeat, it would end. And when it did, the Crawford family would finally be free. Free to heal. Free to rebuild. Free to become whoever they chose to be instead of what circumstances had forced them to become. That was the ending Maxwell was fighting for now. Not the dramatic victory, not the perfect resolution, just the quiet peace of a family that had survived the impossible and earned the right to rest. It was a long way off. Years, maybe. Meridian wouldn't fall easily. The fight would be brutal. The cost would be high. More sacrifices would be required. More impossible choices would need to be made. But Maxwell was ready. Vanessa was ready. The children were ready. They'd come this far, survived this much, become this strong. They would see it through to the end, together, as a family, the way it should have been from the beginning, the way it would be when this was finally over. Maxwell stayed with his children until dawn, watching them sleep, protecting them in the only way he could in this moment, just by being there, just by loving them, just by refusing to give up on them or the future they deserved. And as the sun rose over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Maxwell Crawford made himself a promise. When this war ended, when Meridian fell, when his family was finally safe, he would give his children the most precious gift he could, the chance to just be kids, to play, to laugh, to grow up without fear. It was a simple dream. But after 3 years of nightmares, simple was exactly what they needed. Simple, safe, together. That was the happy ending Maxwell was fighting for, and he would burn the world down to get it.